She was another silent girl. No one would adopt until one man, a broken, widowed clockmaker, stood up in court and said, "I'll take her." What the judge did next surprised everyone. But it wasn't the adoption documents that transformed her world. It was what he had taught her about time. This is a tale of second chances, quiet love, and the father who remained even when all others left. He never intended to become a father again. Following the death of his wife and the chaotic breakdown of all that he ever knew as family, Marcus existed quietly, mending clocks and watches in a small, dingy shop hidden behind an antique barber's on the corner of 2nd and Layton. The days went by at a snail's pace, the same way the second hands wound back, every tick reminding him that time was not concerned with sorrow. He wasn't bitter, he was exhausted. That was all resolved the morning he was summoned to court, not for him, but for a girl named Lacey. She wasn't his daughter, not yet. He'd met her months ago, volunteering at a local shelter, not out of virtue, but because his parole officer thought community integration would look good. Marcus didn't even like kids. They were too loud, too unpredictable. But something about Lacey made him pause. She was 11, but her eyes looked 40. She never whined, never begged for attention. Rather, she sat alone near the old vending machine, reading shredded math books and drawing in a journal she treated like a sacred thing. Her shoes didn't match. Her arms were bony, but her posture, straight as a pin, never wavered. One afternoon, while the others sat watching cartoons, Lacey approached him and put a broken watch into his hand. "This is yours," she said. "You lost it last week." "I didn't lose anything," Marcus said. She shrugged. "It appeared to be yours." Then she walked away. The following week, he discovered the same watch on his workbench. Fixed. He never instructed her, never explained the names of gears or how to rethread a spring. But somehow she understood. That was when he first experienced it, that awkward flutter in his chest. As if his heart was waking up from decades of slumber, he began to bring her books. At first, on clocks, then blueprints, then mathematics theory. She devoured them like oxygen. Then the director of the shelter informed him she was to be relocated, moved out. "Her foster case is a mess," she said. "They'll probably send her out to state care in Oak Ridge. That place is, well, it's not where kids like Lacey belong." Marcus didn't sleep that night. At dawn, he got in his truck and drove 3 hours to the nearest courthouse. He hadn't stepped inside one since the accident. That's when he said it, without really thinking. "I'll adopt her." The words shocked even him. The clerk blinked. "Are you related?" "No." "Are you married?" "No." "Have you had foster children before?" "No." She smiled politely. "Sir, it's not that simple." But he completed the papers anyway. That was 6 weeks ago. Now he was back in court, standing before a judge with deep creases and tired eyes. Lacey was sitting next to him in a sweater that was too big and braids she had done herself. She said nothing, just held her arms crossed, her journal clutched hard to her chest. The social worker placed a folder on the desk. The judge opened it, flipped a few pages, and stopped. It was her report card. Straight A's. But more than that, it had a teacher's scribbled note at the bottom. "This child has a mind unlike any I've ever seen. Quiet, watchful, brilliant." The judge gazed at Marcus, then at Lacey, and then he smiled. "I've never seen this from a transitional shelter case," he said quietly. "What did you do for her, Mr. Hale?" "I didn't do anything," Marcus said. "She fixed herself. I just gave her space." The judge rapped his gavel. Approved. They exited without a word. Lacey didn't weep. Marcus didn't grin. But something fell into place between them, a silent understanding. Not love. Not yet. But perhaps something similar. They rode home with the windows open, wind gliding through them like a gentle shake of hands. She reached out once and turned on the radio. A soothing jazz station played in the truck. It would have stopped there if life were a film, but life is nastier than cinema. A week after, Lacey's previous case file was reopened. Marcus had no clue why. The social worker did not answer his calls. Then a woman appeared in front of his store one morning. Blonde, early 40s, designer coat, venom in her tone. "You stole my daughter," she spat. She was Lacey's biological mom. Addicted, abusive, and now clean at least. That's what her records indicated. She wanted custody restored. "They removed her from me while I was detoxing," she told him. "You don't think I deserve a second chance?" Marcus stared at her. "You got your chance," he informed her. "She doesn't even mention you." "She doesn't have to," the woman retorted. "Blood speaks for her. He would have punched a wall. He called his attorney instead. It dragged on for months. Lacey never mentioned it, never wept, never inquired. But Marcus saw the difference in her drawings. The clock she once drew now cracked with bleeding ink. The gears were twisted into eyes, mouths, shattered teeth. He attempted to communicate with her, but certain wounds cut in reverse. The final hearing occurred in early spring. Marcus stood in court once more, this time facing the woman who had borne the girl he now loved as breath. The judge requested Lacey where she wished to reside. The courtroom hung. She rose, took slow steps forward, and handed the judge a piece of paper, her journal. He opened it. There were entries. Dozens of them, dated, observational, painful. Mom hit me again today, said I make her feel small. I think I'd rather disappear. Marcus showed me how to repair things, even if people can't be repaired. I don't know that I know what love feels like, but I think it smells like sawdust and coffee. The judge shut the book. The woman started crying, but Lacey didn't glance her way. The court decided in favor of Marcus. He didn't rejoice, simply escorted Lacey back to the truck, in silence as per usual. But this time when they hit Layton Street, she did something she'd never done before. She reached over and took his hand. "Thank you," she whispered softly. "For what?" "For waiting for me." Marcus said nothing. He simply squeezed her hand. Years later, well after she'd gone off to university and begun designing clocks for museums, Marcus stumbled on the journal again, behind a loose floorboard. On the last page of the book was a note to the man who taught me that blood is nothing but loyalty is everything. "I didn't repair your watch. I simply gave you a reason to open it again." Marcus left the Kerr journal on his workbench after that, not to read again, but as a reminder of something he tended to forget, that people are more than what they endure. Lacey didn't come around much after her career launched. She was on the road all the time, London, Kyoto, Montreal, putting on exhibits, giving lectures on antique horology, advising private collectors. But she phoned every Sunday, never missing, sometimes for just 5 minutes, sometimes just to inquire about the type of coffee he'd had that morning. One spring, she mailed him a package. No message, just a wooden box velvet, lined, in it, a timepiece. It wasn't exquisite in the classical sense, no gold plate, no gemstone face, no trademark. But Marcus knew the hands. They were those of the busted watch he'd found years before on his workbench, the one she'd repaired. Only now, it ticked in flawless beat. On the reverse, she'd engraved a single line, "Time didn't heal me. You did." He stood quiet, one hand resting over the slick brass, the other shaking ever so slightly, because all his years of fixing things, he never believed something broken would ever decide to return and mend him. They sat on the porch the next time she returned home, cicadas vibrating low in the trees. Lacey had her own child now. A little stubborn thing who liked to take apart her toys and stow the screws away. Marcus observed the girl roll under the swing and force a toy soldier between the floorboards. "She's got your hands," he grumbled. "No," Lacey smiled. "She's got yours." He didn't protest. The past still lingered sometimes, in dreams, in silence, but no longer controlled him. He had reconciled not by forgetting, but by loving someone worth remembering. That night, while closing the house after dinner, Lacey faced him and whispered, "Do you ever regret it?" "What?" "Everything. Taking me in. Everything. Going through all of this." Marcus looked at her for a long moment. The girl who once repaired a watch instead of asking for affection, who gave truth without asking for comfort, who made him believe he still had something left to give. He took a breath. "I regret waiting so long," he said. Lacey's eyes shimmered, but she said nothing. She didn't need to. Some bonds don't need words. Years later, when Marcus died peacefully in his sleep, it was Lacey who discovered the letter on his bedside. It was addressed to her, sealed in wax, and inside was the original, broken watch. Still unfixed, still silent, and a note that said, 10, some things we leave broken, not because they can't be mended, but because the memory matters more than the fix. She kept it in her office next to the clock she had crafted for him and spoke to her daughter. "Your grandfather showed me the beauty of silence and the strength of one person who refuses to quit." And each evening, as the clock ticked next to her bed, Lacey would shut her eyes and recall the first man who had given her a home, not of walls but of dedication, not constructed of wood but of time. Years went by. The world whirled ahead, quicker than before. New technologies, new phobias, more vocal mouths everywhere. But in the little house where Marcus had grown her up, Lacey came back each fall, just for a weekend. She'd take her teenage daughter, who had the same questions Lacey asked herself years ago. Why didn't they love me? Why do some hurt other people just to feel strong? How do you forgive when no one apologizes? Lacey never provided simple answers. She'd fix a cup of tea, open the worn-out diary Marcus had left behind, and read from it gradually. Not the fiction he penned, but the questions that he asked himself when no one was watching, when the world didn't expect anything from him. Those were the lines that counted. One of them stated, "She deserves someone who won't flinch when she speaks the truth, someone who can hold pain without turning it into punishment." That was the way Marcus raised her, not flawlessly, but with patience. And now, when her daughter wept for reasons Lacey could not fix, she would do what he used to do for her. Remain, not speak, not mend, simply stay. Because at times, healing does not resemble wisdom. It resembles silence. Like breath, like hands clasping you, unmoving until the tempest recedes. On the 15th anniversary of his death, Lacey held a small display in the town museum. One single glass case, and it was her timepiece she had constructed for him, his broken one he left behind, and the adoption decree she had once believed would never arrive. On the bottom of the case was a plaque. It did not have names, dates, or accomplishments. Just a sentence from Marcus's diary. "My fatherhood isn't blood. It's deciding to choose someone each day, even when they don't think they're worth it. Even when they don't think they're worth it." Guests halted, stood there, and sometimes departed without comment. But others wiped away tears. Some smiled. Some gazed too long at the still watch, the one that never ticked again, because it meant something. Often, the shattered things are the ones that speak the loudest. The ones we leave intact, not for their purpose, but for what they recall. A decision, an instant, a man who remained. Lacey never achieved fame. She didn't seek it out. But around that town, her and her dad's tale had become low-key, legend spoken in deep school corridors, murmured by librarians, written in notebooks by children who felt overlooked. And years after her own hair had gone gray, her daughter would ask, "What do you miss most about him?" Lacey would always reply the same. "He never tried to save me. He just made it safe enough for me to save myself." Some houses are constructed of wood and paint, but the real ones, the ones which endure, are constructed of people who don't depart. Lacey's daughter had heard her grandfather's name like a prayer all her growing up years. Not loud, not melodramatic, just there. She taught school. Not clocks or history, but literature, stories, how the human heart can fold in on itself and yet continue to beat. She gave her students a final paper every year. One question and one question only. Who taught you the value of time? They wrote about deadlines. They wrote about bereavement. Some of them wrote about missed opportunities, but one of them wrote something she would never forget once. He wrote, "My father departed. My mother works at night, but my neighbor accompanies me to school each day and stays until I am inside. I believe time is simply love, measured softly." She gave him an A. He's Ed. She gave him an A. Later in the evening, she came home, opened the drawer containing 2 watches, one which ticked, one which did not, and just gazed at them. She came to an understanding. Time fixed nothing, but love, given over and over without expecting thanks, without even expecting hope, that redrew her family's story. And in a box which she hadn't opened in years was a letter, old, worn, to her mom in Marcus's script. She only opened it once and closed it up again. It read, "If you're reading this, I'm gone, but she's still yours. And if you ever find yourself brave enough to be her mother, she's waiting. Until then, I'll be the one who stays." Her mom never returned, but it didn't matter. Some kids are given one parent, some are given 2. Lacey received one who never departed, and that was sufficient. Years afterwards, when Lacey was a grandmother, she told tales not from publications, but from recollection. She'd sit beneath the exact same porch Marcus constructed with his bare hands, her granddaughter nestled in beside her, and recount stories that had no dragons, no enchantments, just individuals who were damaged and courageous enough to adore anyway. In the evening, the child inquired, "Was he your actual dad?" Lacey smiled, not with regret, not with sadness, with peace. "No," she said. "He was better than that." The little girl looked puzzled. "Better." Lacey nodded. "He didn't just name me. He gave me a life I didn't realize I was permitted to desire." Then she took something out of her sweater pocket, a tiny faded key. It opened no door, but it had once been part of a box in Marcus's closet, the one in which he stored every drawing she had done, every report card, every piece of paper upon which she'd penned, "I love you, Dad." He'd referred to it as his proof file. Proof that love, shared freely, could script the ending. And when Lacey died, her granddaughter discovered a letter hidden between the pages of a children's book on their bookshelf. It was written only, "To the one who stays." It said, "You'll be tempted to fix everyone. Don't. Just be there. Love isn't loud. It's the quietest thing in the room, and the one we remember the longest." Her granddaughter did not sob immediately. She shut the book, hugged it to her body, then glanced up at the old wall clock still hanging in that house. It had never functioned. but no one had ever removed it. Some clocks run down, but some loves never lose track of time. And sometimes life does not provide us with the family we want, it gives us the one we require. And in those silent surprise moments, when someone decides to linger, to have faith in us, to love us without expecting anything back, that's when healing starts. We all have wounds we don't talk about, but grace has a way of filling the silent places. It makes us remember that even shattered clocks are still able to tell time. And even shattered people are still able to show us how to love. Perhaps that's the real miracle, no perfection, but presence. And perhaps tonight, we're all being reminded to linger just a little longer for someone who needs us to.